The courtroom buzzed with whispers as a teenage boy in a hoodie walked through the heavy doors, his hands tucked into his pockets, his eyes calm but unreadable. The judge looked up, her lips curling into a smirk. "Is this a joke? A child in my courtroom," she said loudly, drawing laughter from the audience. The boy didn't respond. He simply stood there, quiet and composed. To everyone else, he was just another reckless teen out of place and out of luck. What no one knew was that the boy they were mocking had a secret that would shake the entire court. As the judge continued to belittle him, calling him a lost cause, he slowly placed a briefcase on the table and pulled out legal documents. The laughter died instantly. Within moments, the same courtroom that mocked him would stand in stunned silence when they discovered who he truly was. His name was Ryan Carter, a 19-year-old prodigy who had finished law school before he was even legally allowed to drive. Born into poverty, Ryan's mother worked 3 jobs just to keep the lights on, and his father had disappeared long ago. Books became his escape, the law his weapon. But despite his brilliance, no one took him seriously because of his age and his background. That day, he walked into the courtroom not as a defendant, but with a mission: to expose the injustice that had destroyed his mother's life. The judge, Helen Marks, was known for her arrogance and sharp tongue. She saw people by their status, not their stories. So when Ryan entered without a suit or reputation, she didn't see potential. She saw someone beneath her. But what she failed to realize was that Ryan wasn't there to seek mercy. He was there to make history. The trial began with the usual rhythm of authority. The gavel struck, papers shuffled, and the judge's voice carried through the room with commanding arrogance. Ryan stood before her, representing his mother, who had been wrongly accused of fraud by a company that had stolen from her. "You can't represent anyone," the judge scoffed. "You're barely out of school." Ryan looked up, his tone steady. "With respect, Your Honor, I passed the bar exam last month." The courtroom froze. Murmurs rippled through the benches as reporters raised their cameras. The judge hesitated but motioned for him to continue, clearly expecting him to fail. But as soon as Ryan began speaking, the entire atmosphere shifted. His words were precise, his evidence airtight. He presented bank statements, forged documents, and proof of corruption that linked the very company accusing his mother to multiple crimes. His presentation was so sharp that even the defense attorney struggled to keep up. The judge's expression shifted from amusement to disbelief as Ryan cross-examined witnesses with surgical precision. He pointed out inconsistencies, cited laws from memory, and dismantled the opposing side's arguments one by one. When the defense objected, he calmly referenced precedent cases that even seasoned lawyers had forgotten. The spectators leaned forward, watching a teenager command the courtroom like a master. The judge tried to interrupt, but Ryan stood firm, his calm voice cutting through her authority. "With all due respect, Your Honor, justice does not depend on age. It depends on truth." The courtroom fell silent. By the time he finished, the evidence was overwhelming. The defense attorney slumped back in defeat. Judge Marks looked at the documents, her arrogance replaced by shock. The company's guilt was undeniable. She hesitated, clearly humbled, before finally declaring, "Case dismissed. The defendant is innocent." The entire room erupted in applause, but Ryan didn't smile. He simply gathered his papers and turned to leave. The judge called after him, "Mr. Carter, how did you do this?" He paused at the door and said quietly, "By remembering what it feels like to be ignored." Then he walked out, leaving a room full of stunned faces behind him. The story of the teenage genius spread across the nation within hours. News outlets called him the young attorney who defied the court. Universities reached out with offers. Law firms begged for his partnership, but Ryan refused them all. He chose instead to open his own foundation to help those who couldn't afford legal representation, naming it after his mother. Judge Marks, once proud and untouchable, sent him a handwritten letter apologizing for her words, a letter Ryan never replied to. Instead, he framed it in his office as a reminder of where he came from and what he stood for. Years later, when reporters asked him how it felt to outsmart a courtroom full of professionals, he smiled softly and said, "It wasn't about proving I was smarter. It was about proving that respect should never depend on appearance." And that was the moment the world finally listened.